some old faces from going back quite a long time around the Nottingham Sangha. So lovely to see you guys and all the new faces as well. So I'm live from the yurt tonight, and I've taken my washing down, so you don't have to see that. It doesn't put you off. So tonight I'm going to talk about this theme of views, and it's quite there's so many different talks that could be given on this subject. So in a way, I'm just going to kind of take a little bite from something that's quite vast. So you've got me for 4 weeks, and I'm quite pleased that means I get to sort of explore it in quite a few different ways. I've only written one talk so far, which is enough so far. I'm not quite sure what's going to follow on next, but it's going to be around. We hopefully dip into some Perfection of Wisdom sutras and look at some of those teachings next week. So this evening, and this is going to flow into the other weeks that we explore this, I'm going to introduce a teaching that's known as the 3 levels of wisdom. And this I think fits very well with the subject of views and the cultivation of right view, because I think it sort of explains very well how you cultivate right view, which I'll say more about shortly, and go on to take that to be more than just conceptual understanding, but something that you understand so deeply and with emotion and an integrated mind, that it takes it to another level, more than just concepts and words on a page. It starts to transform your life. It starts to change how you see the world and act in the world. So we're going to look at this teaching of the 3 levels of wisdom. And I'll just say a few things around views before we kind of go right into that. But I'll just first of all, I'll say a little bit about the 3 levels and how they connect with this what we're calling right view. So right view is sort of a simple way of putting it is to say it's a kind of correct view about how the world is, and in this context, definitely it's a kind of Dharmic view, Buddhist view on what's true and what's of value. It can be in the form of teachings that can help us move in the right direction, or the sort of Buddhist philosophy, if you like. Let me tell you the 3 levels of wisdom, and then I can say a bit more. So the 3 levels of wisdom are, firstly, wisdom that's arrived at by hearing or reading the Dharma. And then secondly, I'll be saying this more than once, so if you don't get it the first time, don't worry. Second level of wisdom is wisdom that comes through reflecting upon the Dharma. And then the third level is wisdom that comes through meditating upon the Dharma. So to acquire some right views, some Dharma, to sort of get that, start to take that on board, the first way we tend to do that for most of us is to either hear the Dharma or to read the Dharma. Hear the Dharma through a Buddhist talk or something or other like that, or pick up a Dharma book or a commentary on the Dharma and take it in the form of words and concepts. And that's a very important step in the 3 levels of wisdom. And I'm going to say this evening, I'm going to focus around the first of these 3 levels. So I'll come back to that and what more we can say about hearing the Dharma. But it doesn't stop there. If we just simply heard the Dharma, we'd just have perhaps we'd have some clearer ideas about the nature of reality and how to lead a good life. But the actual putting that into practice might be quite hard to do. Just just with the benefit of some concepts, that might not be enough. It isn't enough, basically. So what we need to do is start to reflect on these concepts, the teachings in their conceptual thought form. And this reflection, in a way, it sort of brings these words and concepts into relationship with our lived experience. We start to test the teachings in our day-to-day lives. And there's another element to reflecting on the Dharma, which I think it's about having learnt the Dharma very clearly and sort of spent a lot of time reading or hearing the Dharma. We then just let that kind of sit within us, start to build in our depths, and in a way kind of relax and let a process take place. And that's going to be more the theme of our second week, exploring the 3 levels of wisdom and views. So I won't say more just now. Then the final level of wisdom is meditating upon the Dharma. And this gives us an even deeper conviction of the truths that the Dharma teaches us. At this level, they're not just clear to us intellectually, or even just clear, even emotionally as well, but they become truths that we directly experience in our meditation practice. I mean, sometimes we can have meditative experiences off the cushion, even in dreams. So the label of meditating shouldn't be taken too literally here. But basically, if we can experience the truths of these teachings that directly, in a sense, it could mean that we experience them unmediated by concepts, unmediated by words. We're just in this direct contact with truth. It's quite hard to talk about, really, what this points to. But when that happens, when we have a glimpse of the Dharma in that sense, we really can become transformed by it. It will change our lives very profoundly. So those are the 3 levels, just very briefly laid out for you. And one more thing I'll just say about them at this stage. It's a list that's quite similar to a lot of other Buddhist lists, in the sense that it sort of starts with a foundation, and here we can see that foundation as hearing or listening to the Dharma, hearing or reading the Dharma. And then if we've done that thoroughly enough, and then we sort of provide the right conditions, reflecting upon the Dharma sort of naturally follows from there. And then that becomes the basis for meditating upon the Dharma. So you can see it as a kind of a list that shows that if you do each one really well, the first stage really well, the second stage almost happens quite naturally. It sort of unfolds. I mean, there's some effort involved, but it really flows from the conditions of the preceding stage. Now, if I'm talking about right views, it's probably good to mention wrong views, because obviously that's the opposite. That's what we're moving away from, and that's what right views provide a corrective perspective to. But I don't have the time. I couldn't think of much to say about them, really, I think I'm going to just focus here on right view and how we work to attain right view, develop right view. But I was thinking one thing that I think I've noticed in my experiences as a practicing Buddhist is that in the process of learning right view and studying and trying to live out the Dharma, your wrong views kind of get dug up, are kind of revealed through that process. And sometimes that might be felt when you're quite provoked by an aspect of the Dharma. You're a bit kind of, it might even be something makes you a bit angry, or you react in some sort of way. And rather than, I think it's quite a useful perspective to take on this, just to look to see if this might be the case, if you get that kind of reaction. It's just to wonder, well, maybe I am on the right track, and what's going on is I've just kind of been digging away, and I've kind of struck a hard, lumpy, wrong view in there that needs looking at. I didn't think of this metaphor beforehand, so I'm a bit lost now where I'm going to take it. And yeah, so when you kind of you'll feel when the Dharma kind of comes into connection with wrong views, when it kind of digs into these wrong views, and that's really fruitful to stay there and look at that, and feel into it. That's when it will start to move into kind of reflection, and in a way you're starting to test these teachings, which is true, the old view or what the Dharma is pointing to. And you don't want to just kind of go, oh, it must be the Dharma, and you just kind of try and adopt this new position. You actually have to kind of test that out, see if it really is that. Okay, so I've probably done this a bit back to front, but now I'll try and define what a view is a little bit. So a view is a conviction, you could say, about that you hold about the way things are. And that could be in relation to something quite superficial, or it could be the biggest questions that life kind of gives us. It could be about how life works, about what is of value, what would be a good life to lead. It could be some political view, or it could be all sorts of things of that sort. Just any sort of perspective that you hold in yourself, and it kind of comes to bear on how you choose and navigate your way through life. And these views we will have acquired through our conditioning in the course of our life, or even possibly Buddhism would suggest through the course of lives. Conditions such as our upbringing, our culture, any different experiences we've had during our lives, all sorts of things can affect the views we kind of acquire and pick up, and they kind of sink into us and become a part of us that's not easy to just kind of drop and swap out for something else. But thankfully, I think it's true to say that some of the views that we have probably won't be necessarily going against the Dharma or incompatible with the Dharma. And the fact that we're all here discussing and exploring the Dharma together means that some of these views will have led us here. Some of these views will have informed the decisions that we made that have led us to decide that this might be a good way to lead a life, that the Dharma holds something for us. So it's not to say that Buddhism has the monopoly on the right perspective on life, but yeah, so that just make that point for you. And then the problem is, though, that a lot of the views that we hold aren't helpful. And you could say, in this context, you could talk of them as being wrong views. Views that, in hindsight, we might find out have the wrong perspective, leading us in the wrong direction, leading us to do unskillful things that kind of bind us to samsara, or just cause us to kind of bring pain upon others and ourselves in life. Okay, so one more thing to say about views and about their nature is that they run, some of the most pernicious ones will run very deep, and in a way the ones that run deep in us, the wrong views, are the ones that we really want to start to look at and start to address. You could say it's almost like they get into our bones, they become kind of part of us, and they're the most deeply ingrained views. We may not even be aware of them as views. We probably won't be. They'll be so familiar and so central to how we've come to live our lives that it's a bit like the fish doesn't realize it's swimming in the water. It just takes that for granted. It doesn't know it as water. So some I'd suggest can be even like that. And when you think of how Buddhism teaches us a very different way of thinking about self-identity, I think you get the sense of what I'm pointing to there. Yeah, the teachings on no fixed self are very go counter to an ordinary common sense way of thinking of the world, thinking of life. So it's that sort of thing potentially. And now one more thing around this is that although a lot of these views, you could express them as concepts, you could kind of explain them as a kind of conceptual, what the view is about. I think it's a mistake to think that the view is that it's an idea or a concept. That will be part of how you experience it and how it affects you. But it will kind of have a whole emotional element to it as well. And you might even say that it's kind of, they can almost be kind of held physically in the body. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make most strongly here, is that there's real work involved in transforming any deeply held wrong view. And you can't just simply exchange a wrong view for a nice Buddhist teaching. You can't just swap them over, unfortunately. We have to come to see the truth of this right view. We have to look at the Dharma and explore the Dharma in a way that really makes it a part of us, and that we only arrive at believing it in its truth through really testing it and looking at whether it's true and asking that question for ourselves. So this will take time, and I was thinking today, perhaps it's a bit like just as it's probably taken you time to acquire the views that are part of your identity, part of your life, and the different conditions that have helped kind of drum them into you, or however you want to put it. In a way, we've got to kind of do something of equal weight in reverse. We've got to use the Dharma to untie some of those knots. There's another metaphor I haven't planned, and adopt this new take on the world. But it takes time before it becomes a natural view that's really been assimilated by us. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say in terms of defining views and talk about wrong views and all that sort of thing. And we're going to concentrate, the last bit of this evening that I'm going to provide input for is focusing in on this first level of wisdom, the wisdom that's attained through hearing the Dharma, or in a modern day we can also add in there reading the Dharma. So just to explain why I said that, it's in the time of the Buddha, which is a good long while back, they weren't in the habit of writing things down. I think it might even be true to say that people just didn't do that at that time. It hadn't been invented, or it certainly wasn't a common practice. I have to ask a historian that question. So followers of the Buddha would have only been able to hear the Dharma, whether it's from a disciple of the Buddha or from the Buddha himself. And it was actually, at the time, the Buddha's disciples, one of the things they became known by, one of the names they were given, was the Shravakas, which literally means hearers. So yeah, I thought that would be useful just to sort of bear that in mind, that yeah, something quite mythical about hearing the Dharma. And that's partly why we have all these lists, that they're fond of lists, because it helped the disciples of the Buddha, followers of the Buddha, to memorize the teachings. So these days, of course, we can read it in a book as well, or find things online. But there is a value to hearing the Dharma and kind of hearing the Dharma live. Or I think there's even a value to hearing the Dharma in this context where obviously we can't do it face to face, but in coming together and hearing the Dharma as close to live as we can kind of manage. And what that potentially adds is that you can see the person who's kind of speaking on the Dharma. You can see what it means to them. You can receive this teaching and see the emotion behind it. You can see any inspiration that the speaker has, that the person sharing their experience of the Dharma has. So you see it embodied to some degree. And that can be quite valuable, no matter what level of experience the person has. As I'd say, as long as they're a sincere practitioner, you can probably find inspiration hearing anyone at any level of engagement talk about the Dharma. And lastly, on that note, the communication, if it's from a kind of live person, can be more directly tailored to you, can be more in response to what questions and life experiencing you're bringing to the Dharma. So you can be, obviously that's more than you can get from just reading a book. But definitely reading is a very important aspect as well. There's so much available to us now so easily that it's really worth making use of reading the Dharma. Possibly asking an order member or someone with a bit more experience, if necessary, where to start. That can, because there's a lot out there, and it's probably quite helpful just to have a bit of guidance what to look into. So what does hearing the Dharma do for us? Essentially, it's how we learn these teachings. We're given the Dharma initially in this conceptual form, and we really need to become clear what the Buddha taught and what Buddhism, the Buddhist tradition teaches. And if that remains kind of vague and wishy-washy, we're going to struggle. And certainly in this stage, when, as I was saying earlier, doing this stage thoroughly provides the basis, the foundation for the stage of reflection. If you've just dipped into the Dharma and you kind of half remember it but get a few bits wrong, if you try and do any sort of reflection and you're kind of getting it all half wrong, it's really not going to be very helpful. It's really not going to take you very far. And if it might just lead to lots of confusion, to be honest. So a thorough exploration and study of the Dharma. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that you all have to become a scholar and write a thesis on some aspect of the Dharma. It's not that. It's more take a few of the key teachings to begin with and just be clear what are the 5 skandhas, or what are the 5 precepts, and what does each one mean, and just have a fairly simple understanding of that, and then start to remember them, start to be able to kind of bring them to mind when you see something in the world which implies something about that teaching. That can be very useful. That can really aid reflection to take place. So it's a bit of a popular a thing these days, perhaps, that we can be a little bit anti-intellectual, or there can be that kind of in spiritual circles, so to speak, that sometimes concepts and intellectual understanding and the study of Dharma books is kind of slighted occasionally. That oh, you need experience, and it's too much in the head, and we need to be in the body. And that can be something you might hear from time to time. And I think it's one of these things that's coming from, there's truth to that, but at the same time, there is a real need for a clear conceptual understanding of these teachings. But that's not at the expense of being aware of our bodies and being able to kind of be present emotionally, and developing that side of ourselves. So it's worth just checking in with yourself. If you might find you have it could be a wrong view. I might say that you, on some level you might dismiss Dharma study with that kind of story in your mind, but have you really kind of gone deeply enough into what the basic teachings are to really be ready to just let go and be in the body? Do you have enough Dharma to inform what might unfold from just dropping into your more direct experience, or are you just going to float off somewhere? So yes, so reason and intellect are crucial for developing right view, but don't let this put you off into thinking again that you need to be a philosopher or reading all the most technical Buddhist books out there. I think just a basis of quite simple fundamental Buddhist teachings is enough, and just to kind of brush that up and get very clear on it is what I'm talking about. Of course, some of us, that might be a strength to kind of really study the Dharma and look widely at different texts, all sorts of things. But yeah, again, that's done in balance. That can be very rich for us. So time flies, and hopefully I've got time to just finish off everything I wanted to say. So like I've said, the first level is hearing the Dharma, and hopefully I've made a sort of strong argument for doing what you can if you want to take this further, if you want to progress through these 3 levels of wisdom, that actually really learning some basic Dharma very thoroughly and even memorizing some of it is a very important step. So I've put together just a short list of points for this stage of hearing the Dharma, and they're very simple really. So the first one is, if you want to hear the Dharma, attend the Buddhist center virtually, in reality, hopefully one day soon. Yeah, hear people give talks on the Dharma, hear what's being taught at the Buddhist center, and participate in discussion of it, which we'll have a chance to do shortly this evening. And it might make you look a bit sort of like the boffin of the class, but get a notebook and a pen and take that along, and make sure you keep some notes that will remind you what was actually covered, and take some notes to sort of help you follow up the themes that are explored. It's very easy to be quite inspired, and then someone asks you later what the talk was about and you can't remember. You've just got this vague memory of being inspired. But so I've heard people say that a lot, but yeah, get that notebook, start filling your bookshelves with all these notes on the Dharma. And in the process of doing this, it's not just about accumulating vast amounts of notes. You actually have to think about the stuff that you're hearing, and think critically, ask questions. What does this mean? And get clear on what the meanings of these Dharma teachings is. And I think in that part of that can be that your favorite parts of the Dharma. I can't say I've done this extensively. I know some people have memorized some short texts, but just to learn something like the Heart Sutra off by heart, or the 5 skandhas and their meanings, or the one thing I learned was a poem by Kukai, a very quite famous poem, and what I found was that the words from this poem, just a verse, would just pop into my mind when kind of life reminded me of something, and that could be very valuable. And that leads us into the next week's theme of reflecting on the Dharma. So yes, study and ask questions, and memorize some of the key parts of the Dharma. And then studying in a group is very valuable as well. That groups happen at the Buddhist Center. So if you were interested, I'm sure you could explore that with someone at the center. But the advantage of studying with others in a group is that you get to see how other people are approaching a subject, and you probably find your views become more apparent when there's other people around talking about their views and their take. And it can be quite challenging, can be, but actually it's a good kind of challenge that it gets you to look at what your perspective really is, and to communicate that clearly and know it yourself more clearly. And then the fourth one on my list, I don't think I've told you when I've got to the others so far, but the fourth one is look at themes that are alive in your practice in your life, and this will bring your study of the Dharma to life more. The last thing I've got here is cultivate a desire to really understand the Dharma, and this is about to really go with this, to really do this in a meaningful way and be transformed by it. You've got to it's got to mean something to you. You've got to find a way that connects you with this study of the Dharma, that brings it alive for you. Why is it important that why did you end up at the Buddhist Center might be a good question. What were you looking for? And how can you find that now in your study of the Dharma? It might be what kind of dukkha, what kind of suffering are you in the midst of in your life? How can the Dharma help you with that? Can you, if you have a lot of issues with anger, or you find that a very difficult emotion, you can study what the Dharma has to say on anger, for instance. So I'm going to finish now, and I've just got a quote from a text called the Ratnaguna Samchaya Gata, which is all one word, nice long word. And this is about hearing the Dharma. This is about hearing the Dharma in a way that's open and receptive, and in a way that sees the Dharma as something that can truly transform us. So when you next have an opportunity to hear the Dharma, you could think of this verse, and it's kind of an exhortation of how to approach the Dharma. Call forth as much as you can of love, of respect, and of faith. Remove the obstructing defilements and clear away all your taints. Listen to the perfect wisdom of the gentle Buddhas, taught for the weal of the world, for heroic spirits intended. Okay, thank you.